Welcome to Two Truths, where we explore controversial topics in religion, philosophy, and history from at least two different perspectives. I'm Dr. Darren Yamarino, and today we're going to be looking at part 2 on lost civilizations and 4 arguments that sort of critique this hypothesis. So please check out part 1, linked below if you have not done so already. Now, as promised in the first video, we're going to look at 2 new arguments. And the first of these is sort of coming from an odd place that you might not expect. So 3 companies, maybe you've heard of them: Sotheby's, Christie's, and Bonhams. These major auction houses and many others will have antiquities auctions, frequently, I guess you could say, maybe a few times a year, something like that. And I bring this up because anyone who has a strong familiarity with the way that sort of auction houses work will understand what I'm about to say. So here's our first kind of new argument relating to lost civilizations. Where are the mass-produced culture-specific items of art or trash even? So what what am I talking about here? This doesn't seem to make maybe a whole lot of sense. If we were to go 2,000 years into the future and ask the question, okay, people are going to be looking at American civilization. So what are sort of the objects that we expect to find? And the answer is going to be cars, iPhones, computers, TVs, stuff like this, right? Where we've mass produced a whole lot of tech, and especially something like, say, a phone or an iPhone or whatever, right? You're going to be finding these rectangular, devices that otherwise look very sleek, simple. What are they, right? Type of thing. But you're going to find a lot of them, right? If we are like 2,000 years, let's say, into the future. Now, I bring this up because if we're going to go back in time, 2,000, 4,000, or 12,000, right, years ago, you find hundreds to, more likely, tens of thousands of the same sort of objects. So what I'm getting at is, if you were to go on one of these like auctions for an antiquities auction and you scroll through, they normally have it broken down by culture. So there's like Egyptian, there's going to be some Mesopotamian, some Greek, stuff like that, right? Pre-Columbian, those are sort of main categories. And anyone who's familiar with this, you could scroll through the auction and without looking at a description of it, just the picture, right? You should, if you're trained well enough, instantly be able to go, that's Egyptian, that's Greek, right? That's from, wherever, right? Any part of the world, New Zealand or something like that. It's anywhere in the world, pretty much. You should be able to instantly recognize it and know what it is. And furthermore, roughly what time period it's at. So if we're talking about Egypt or Greece, there's going to be different phases where you could tell from the pottery or the writing or whatever. So now, tie this into lost civilizations. We have nothing. To my knowledge, there's 0. Nothing. How is it possible that other old admittedly not nearly as old, right, as the claim of these lost civilizations, but still pretty old. So let's talk about Mesopotamia. Stuff from 5,000, let's say, years ago, 4,000 or 5,000 at least, right? 6,000 maybe years ago. So if you look at Mesopotamia, you're going to find cuneiform tablets. They're small. You might think they're big. There are bigger ones too, but generally they're like an inch by an inch or 2 inches, 3 inches, something like that. That big. Let me bring up some images. It's like, they're like receipts. It would be like digging through our trash and literally finding our receipts and stuff like that. It's commonplace stuff, right? So we've got thousands of examples of this. What else might you expect to find in Mesopotamia? Cylinder seals. Bring up some images of that. Thousands of these. Right? And immediately you'd kind of know roughly what culture this is likely from. It's definitely from the Near East. Maybe you might not know if it's like Sumerian, I don't know, Akkadian, Hittite, or whatever, but you would know pretty much roughly the time period and the region. Right? And you expect that you're going to find these sort of things at an archaeological site. If we were in Egypt, again, tons of examples. Ushabtis, right? These little statuettes that stand in for servants and real people to help in the afterlife. Tens of thousands, right? Have been found. Amulets, tiny, like maybe half an inch to an inch, wearing them around your neck or putting them on mummies or whatever. Amulets of a Djed pillar, of the Eye of Horus, super common. There are many, many others that are like very common, right? Cosmetic cups, cosmetic palettes or plates, papyrus scrolls, depending on the time period. So again, what I'm saying is that, like, as an archaeologist in these different parts of the world, or as an art historian or someone selling this ancient art, right? You understand what sort of items are going to be found in different parts of the world at different time periods. Okay? So Greece, I mean, and you can dial it in, sometimes you can really dial it in. Like you can tell, look at it and be like, that's from 750 to 760 or something like that, depending on, say, the pottery or type of bronze work as an example, or marble, right? So like Greco-Roman sort of art, you would expect those things. Different types of pottery, bronze and marble statues, stuff called intaglios, where you have the carved gemstones that are set into rings generally, or bracelets maybe, or necklaces, but rings really. So you know what to expect and what to look for, right? That's my long way of getting around this, which is like, you would know what to look for American civilization, right? 2,000 years from now. And you'd find tons of examples of it. Even if we try to hide the iPhones or something like that, right? Someone would dig a few of them up at a certain point in time, almost inevitably, right? Now, if there's a lost civilization, say that's 12 to 15,000 or whatever number you want to put on it, right? Years old. Where is it? And not where is the evidence? Right? Where are the multiple examples of it? You don't have civilization without mass production of something. Weapons, right? Arrowheads, spearheads, something like that, right? From all these different sectors that you would expect. So there's just so far at least nothing there. And I guess you could of course say, well, hey, we haven't really explored large parts of the world, or maybe it's in Antarctica or or under the ocean But even that's kind of like really stretching things, because I know it's simple to claim like, oh, well, we haven't explored a lot of the world, or especially a lot of the oceans. But like the answer to that's kind of yes and no. I think people love to say stuff like, oh, we've explored 5% of the ocean or whatever it is. But where are you really getting that source from at this point? I think that what does explore even mean? Right? Have we sent people down there? That's one thing. But have we imaged, certain areas? So I think that we have done a pretty decent amount, especially with LiDAR and all these things. Like, I think we have found a lot, right? And we're constantly finding new stuff, right? With satellites again, and people can even go on Google Earth or whatever and found things. But to suggest that somehow there's like a widespread, especially global, seafaring or something like that, ancient civilization just doesn't hold up on this, right? Another thing to remember is like, especially if you're trying to claim that whatever this lost civilization, somehow there were survivors, like an Atlantis type thing or whatever, and that they went and seeded all these various civilizations. When? Mesopotamia is one point in time, like Sumerians. A lot of Egyptian history is at a slightly different point in time. Obviously, Greek stuff's going to come a little bit later. Stuff in like the sort of South America, Central America is also on a different part of the timeline. So what I'm saying is you don't have like Indus Valley civilization, Sumerians, and dynastic period Egypt like all starting at the exact same time. In some cases, we're talking about like 1,000 to 1,500 years or more, especially if we bring in elements of like South America, Central America. It's not all kicking off at the same time period. So like if there's survivors, what are they, just waiting to do certain things in certain regions for a lot longer? I don't know. It doesn't really add up to me on that particular point either. But let's get into our last piece here. Our last argument kind of ties into what I was just talking about. I think that a lot of people that want to make videos on this, go on podcasts and stuff like that, there's sort of a general lack of knowledge of the mainstream academic views. Now, the academic views are proven wrong, right? So it isn't to suggest that somehow only people with PhDs or whatever are entitled to research things. Not at all. And I actually think it's a great thing that there are people that are able to learn about formerly obscure esoteric topics and can sort of weigh in on it, right? But a lot of times people are weighing in without the prior knowledge of what at least like the mainstream opinion is and why, right? Not just what it is, but why. Say, for example, Egyptologists are saying X about the pyramids or Y about the Sphinx, or you know what I mean? Most people don't know like what the main viewpoint and argument is and why. And this sort of two other related pieces. Very few people have studied world religions at a deep level and studied it chronologically. Okay, because religion presumably ties in to a lot of these ancient cultures and monuments and texts and all that, right? So if your only background is an atheist or a Christian or whatever it is, right? It's a pretty big stretch for you to think that you're going to know what happened over a multi-thousand year, right, period of time in Egypt. And not just what happened, but why. Like the socio-political influences, what's happening with the religious views and with technology, etc., right? It's a ton of material to know. And it is the job of an expert, right? Content experts to be able to go really deep into something really specific like that. And they might be wrong about the claims they're making, but they've studied it for decades and decades. So you'd think that you would at least read what these people are saying and why first before jumping in to criticize it without properly understanding their viewpoints. And you get this all over the place, whether it's Egyptology or linguists. How many people are on the internet now saying that they're an expert in, Sumerian or Greek or whatever it is, Sanskrit or something? Maybe they are. Maybe they've studied a little bit, but maybe they've self-taught, right, and gone through a lot. But this stuff is hard and complex. So 1 year, say, of self-studies, not sufficient in most cases, right? And who's even really done that? A lot of the people probably haven't done any of it. So you need to have a grasp of these ancient languages, and that is hard to do. You can learn stuff online, but the sources, how do you know what to trust? It is one of those things that it's challenging to learn like dead ancient languages if you're not at a good university and sort of a grad program. It's not impossible, it's just that it's difficult, right? Same thing I think even goes for the study of world religions. My personal experience, that's what I teach. So I have found that a lot of people don't even have a good grasp of their own religious tradition that they claim to be a part of, like the origin, say, of it, or the core beliefs, or even practices of it, right? Let alone how things like shaped and changed and evolved over thousands of years within certain religions. Right? So this is all to say that to bring it back into like the lost civilization piece, which is like, yes, academics very well might have stuff, might be wrong. And the Göbekli Tepe is a good, example of being wrong about timelines and expectations for hunter-gatherers versus, right, a more sedentary or agrarian society. So mistakes are made. But anyone who wants to go against the mainstream views, I love it. I'm all for it. Make sure you know a pretty good amount of what the mainstream view is first, right? And why. Right? Just knowing like a fact or a date or something like that, that's not enough. That's not actually knowledge, right? That's insufficient. You have to be able to answer the why question on all of it, right? Once you get into that, you're actually getting into the hearts and minds of a people a little bit more. We never can fully, right? But it gets you closer, I think. So let me know your thoughts. By all means, I welcome criticism, right? Any sort of positive feedback, negative feedback. Hey, I'm all for it, and I always respond in the comment sections. You can ask me any technical, detailed question you want, and if I don't know the answer, that's what I'll say, is that I don't know it. Right? Another thing that we probably could all get more of. People saying, I don't know, but I'll look into it and maybe we can learn more about it together. So there you have it. Let me know your thoughts on this hypothesis for a lost civilization.